Hi, it's Mary. So today, August 30, many people are being celebrated. And in this video, I'll be talking about the lives of Aphrodite, Athena, and Cleopatra and how they influenced the world. So first, who was Aphrodite? Well, Aphrodite was the Greek goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, and procreation. Known to the Romans as Venus, her beauty was unrivaled among the gods, earning her the title of most beautiful. Aphrodite possessed an enchanted girdle that gave her power to make anyone fall irrevocably in love with her. Now let's go deeper into Aphrodite's power of love and desire. Supreme among Aphrodite's powers was that of her magical girdle, instructed by alluring beauty and desire. You see, in the picture that I'm currently showing, and she wore that, no mortal or god could resist falling madly in love with her. She prudently loaned this to others when she wished to cast her enchanting sway, such as when intervening in family spats among the deities. Alongside this were her subtler, more holistic charms. Classical sculpture and artwork captured Aphrodite's spellbinding physical perfection. Gracefully proportioned and flawlessly beautiful, she carried herself with alluring poise and eyes of eternal, ineffable youth. Her beauty radiated a soft, warm glow, literally casting light all over she touched. Aphrodite's mere presence enchanted the senses, unleashing tremors of mediated sensation and longing. The rustle of silk, a whiff of jasmine, the curve of a smile, even minor gestures suffused the aura surrounding her with intoxicating bliss. Thus, Aphrodite channeled universal love as the essential force of generation, harmony, and life itself into a uniquely feminine erotic form. She had expressed to its creative energies through profound rapture, intimate, and deep emotional bonds between lovers. Yet, she also wielded its devastating potential, wielding her charms wrathfully to inspire fatal jealousy and chaos. And now we'll talk about how Aphrodite caused the Trojan War. The Trojan War. Aphrodite took the side of the Trojans because in a way she had caused it by a promise to win a contest. Aphrodite used her irresistible appeal to aid the Trojans in a famed conflict provoked by her. This stemmed from the mythic Judgment of Paris contest to determine the fairest goddess. At the wedding of Thetis and Peleus, the troublemaking goddess Ares maliciously started conflict. She threw a golden apple inscribed to the fairest among the guests, knowing it would trigger rivalry. Unsurprisingly, Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera each staked a claim. When none would yield, Zeus delegated the mortal Paris of Troy as arbiter. Each goddess sought to sway him with bribes. Hera offered political power, Athena martial prowess, and Aphrodite the love of the most beautiful woman alive, Helen, also known as Eleni, of Sparta. Dazzled and susceptible is the most primal gift of all. Paris awarded Aphrodite the golden apple. True to her word, Aphrodite helped Paris abduct the already married Eleni while visiting her home in Greece. Eleni fell in love with Paris and they fled back to Troy. This sparked the 10-year conflict with Menelaus, also known as Menelaus, king of Sparta, and Eleni's husband and brother to the great Agamemnon. Thus, Eleni became the face that launched 1,000 ships. Achilles says Aphrodite overpowers the mind and sensible thinking of any immortal or human being, as well as clouding Eleni's judgment to run off through Paris. She laid waste to the Greek and Trojan armies, heedless to the devastation. Only those with sufficient divine aid, like invulnerable Achilles, could resist. The love goddess caused untold suffering to satisfy personal vanity and her son Eros' whims. This revealed darker currents within primal love, obsession, infatuation, sacrificing all for the mere promise of fulfillment. Now, how was Aphrodite viewed by the ancients? Widespread devotion testifies to how Aphrodite's beautiful, enchanting presence resonates with millions across the ancient Mediterranean world from Greece to Rome and beyond. In Athens, she was the patron of the ancient district of Aphrodite, surrounded by brothels, theaters, and artists' quarters. Here, games and festivals were held regularly in her honor, fusing the arts with hedonistic revelry. Sicily was home to her most famed sanctuary at Mount Eryx, overseeing a bustling pilgrimage route. Since Judgment of Paris, doves were her sacred animals, so their nests surrounded the temple. Worshippers burned offerings, engaged ritual prostitution, left their gifts like seashells, mirrors, and roses. And as a foreigner, Aphrodite's impact on local spirituality could be deep and lasting. In Sparta, Ephesus' coming-of-age rituals were dedicated to Aphrodite rather than their longtime guardian Artemis. In Cyprus and Rhodes, she fused with native mother goddesses to rule important, all-encompassing cults. Yet her appeal was cosmopolitan, not chauvinistic. At Cnidus, a bustling Korean port, her sanctuary welcomed pilgrims from across the Mediterranean. A symbolic marriage ceremony between her statue and the city's leader was performed annually. Aphrodite was even more welcomed in Egypt, where many Greco-Egyptian deities fused, absorbing the long traditions of spirituality there. Her portrayals often assimilate motifs from the powerful erotico-maternal Isis. This ubiquitous impact reflects Aphrodite's uniquely transcendent qualities. Beyond just beauty or sexuality, she represented the deepest yearnings, aspirations, and pleasures inherent to the human condition. People innately recognized her as the divine embodiment of fundamental life forces: love, creativity, intimacy, ecstasy, and fertility. At the same time as this universal essence, Aphrodite's cult carefully maintained associations with specific ideal prized in specific cultures. In Sparta, the openness and vitality of love. In Rhodes, the enduring divinity of a feminine natural world. Now we're going to talk more about Aphrodite's international exchange and influence. As trade, culture, and ideas spread across the ancient Mediterranean world, Aphrodite's influence transcended the Greek world. Her most iconic incarnation, Venus, merged with Roman gods such as love, also known as Amor, and sexual desire, also known as Libido. From Republican times, moralists critiqued the decadent foreign goddess, inspiring lust, adultering, and disrupting civil order. Yet Venus steadily grew in popularity, especially among less austere classes celebrating pleasure and cosmopolitan values. Writers like Virgil and Ovid embraced her universal allure, her divine power over passion and love through with the governing forces of human affairs was now widely acknowledged. In Aphrodite rode winged horses, dolphins, and swans. Animals like doves, sparrows, and hares embodied her spirit in humble yet joyous abundance. Where other gods inspired illusion of intoxication, her transfigurative beauty elevated mortal consciousness. Her sphere expanded from affairs of the heart to beauty, cultural refinement, and creative ecstasy. Gardens and Venus shrines dedicated to her aesthetic spiritual cult grew across the empire. One highly influential site was at Pompeii, captured in exemplary mosaics and frescoes before Vesuvius erupted. From the 4th century BCE, her aura and that of other loved dignities from the east intermingled even more freely across Eurasia, brought by traveling mystics, merchants, and armies. She syncretized with Middle Eastern goddesses like Inanna, Ishtar, Astarte, and the Egyptian Isis. This blossomed into syncretic Greco-Arab and Greco-Indian mystic philosophies identifying divine love as the fundamental cosmic force. Here, she was Aphrodite Urania, heavenly Aphrodite, dwelling beyond yet infusing the material world. As the Roman crescent gave way to Christian monotheism, her last vestiges endured in heretical movements like Gnosticism before being absorbed and sublimated into the Blessed Virgin Mary and other saintly female figures. But the ancient world's artistic patrimony, poetry, and mystic teachings left an enduring cultural imprint. So that was all for Aphrodite. Now we're going to talk more about Athena, the Greek goddess of beautiful inspiration and warfare. Athena was one of the 12 main deities on Mount Olympus. She was also one of the most important and respected deities in the ancient Greek tradition. So who was she in Greek mythology? She was the embodiment of logical thought and cold calculation. She was brilliant, strategic, and a planner. Even though she was a woman, she was revered by men in ancient Greece as a leader in warfare. She was worshipped throughout Greece, but her main cult resides in Athens, hence the name. It was her place because that was the intellectual center of the ancient Greeks. They built many buildings in her name, most famously the Parthenon. Because of her existence, it showed the value of intelligence, strategy, and wisdom in Greek culture. Now we're going to talk more of the etymology of the goddess Athena, what's in the name. There's some confusion and debate about the origin of the name Athena. Plato offered the idea that Homer's thoughts on the name might have been correct. The latter, in fact, suggested that Athena came from the combination mind or nous and intelligence or dianoia, but that was later decided not to be the case. Most believe that her name came from Athanae, which is the Greek name for Athens. Deities were usually named for the places for which they were known. She went by many epithets which described characteristics of Athena. These epithets included Parthenos, meaning virgin, Pallas, meaning girl, Promachos, meaning of war, Ergane, meaning of the crafts, and Athena Nike, meaning victorious Athena. In other stories, she was also described as the bright-eyed goddess of spoil and the lovely-haired goddess. What was Athena known for? Athena was known for emerging from the head of her father, Zeus. She was also known for being a patron and champion of heroes such as the famed Hercules. What was her symbol, though? Athena was most often portrayed as wearing a whole suit of armor and carrying a sword. Her other symbols were owls, snakes, and olive trees, as well as helmets. What is the mythology of Athena? Athena had a role in many myths, and the story of Athena is mostly tales of political or religious import. She was called upon for blessings to inspire, bestow wisdom, and assist with military strategy. She lived on throughout ancient Greek culture to the ancient Romans as well. And what about the patronage of Athens? There were a few stories that explain how the great city of Athens became patronized by Athena. One of them stated that Athena and her uncle Poseidon fought against each other to be the patron. They both decided they would give a gift to the city, and the king named Cecrops would be the one to choose the best gift. Poseidon put his trident in the ground, unleashing a wave of salt water. In another story, he gave Athens horses. Athena offered an olive tree as a gift, and Cecrops accepted the gift happily. Athena was given the position as patron of the city, and Greece became so linked with olives. Olives became an integral part of the culture. It also became one of Greece's main exports. And just before, when I was talking about Afroditi, I explained that Afroditi was the one that caused the Trojan War and the competition to see who's the fairest of them all. Athena was part of it as well. Athena appeared in Homer's The Iliad as part of a competition between three goddesses. Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena each wanted to know who's the most beautiful of the three. The reason was that they wanted to own a golden apple inscribed with the phrase, "to the fairest," on it. Zeus commissioned Paris, prince of Troy, to choose between the goddesses, but he couldn't decide. So the three goddesses decided to bribe him to make him choose. Hera offered him political power, Athena offered him the glories of victory in battle, and Aphrodite told him that he could marry the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris chose the third option, and Aphrodite brought about the abduction of Eleni from Sparta. This action triggered the Trojan War. And how was Athena playing interference during the Trojan War? Athena used her powers to try and sway people to a certain side, advise them, or even change the tide of battles during the Trojan War. She was the one who backed the Greeks against Troy, and her interference would usually come in the form of whispering advice in the ears of men. In one example, she helped to calm Achilles' rage at King Agamemnon, thus preventing a particular battle from happening. She promised him rewards if he didn't fight against him. But that didn't mean she didn't like the fighting. Later in the story, both sides decided that the battle could be finally decided if King Menelaus and Prince Paris would fight together. Then it could all be settled, but Athena wanted to continue the main battles. These were a sort of truce between the two armies while they decided this, and Athena dressed herself up as a warrior named Laodocus. She told a Trojan general named Pandaros to fire an arrow at Menelaus before she told him that if the king of Sparta were to die, all would be sorted. He did, and she directed the arrow, making it only injure Menelaus instead of killing him. This broke the truce, and the fighting began anew, just what Athena wanted. And Athena was also in the Odyssey, giving advice and doing tricks. In Homer's Odyssey, Athena gave wisdom to the great Odysseus as he began his journey home back to his wife. She also provided counsel to his son, Telemachus, but strangely, she also seemed to enjoy tricking him. In one story, she appeared to Odysseus in prison dressed as a shepherd. When he was back in his home in Ithaca, she came to him and she told him that his wife Penelope had decided to find a new lover. Odysseus was furious, but he didn't quite believe the shepherd because he believed in his wife. Athena saw that she was unable to trick him, and thus she revealed her true form to him. She told him the truth, that his wife was overcome with suitors for her hand now that her husband was gone for so long. She also told him that his wife waited for him. Odysseus rushed home dressed as a beggar according to Athena's suggestion. Armed with the knowledge about the suitors, he was able to kill every last one of them and return to his former life. And how was Athena worshipped? Athens was the main city where Athena was worshipped but she was worshipped in other cities as well. She was worshipped in various ways, at various times, and for various reasons. These included the Feast of the Bath. This was a festival at the end of May, and it was celebrated every year. It was a 5-day sort of cleansing ritual. Athena's priestesses would undress her statue, wash the clothes, and purify the body. She was worshipped at a festival named Chalcia. This was a festival dedicated to bronze and metal workers and other craftsmen. She was believed to be the one to lead soldiers into battle, and she was much more highly regarded than Ares, god of war. They celebrated her at military festivals such as the Panathinaike Games and Pamboeotia. That was all for Athena. Finally, let's talk more about the life of Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. Cleopatra was known one of the most prominent queens in antiquity, known for intelligence, powerful army, gold-filled coffers, and notorious affairs with political leaders. She was a prominent player in both the death of the Roman Republic and the fall of the Egyptian pharaohs. While she met a tragic end, she successfully maneuvered a predominantly male domain with striking aptitude. So what was Cleopatra's connection to Alexander the Great? Cleopatra was queen of Egypt, but she was not an Egyptian. Born in 7069 BCE, she was the daughter of Ptolemy XII and Cleopatra V Tryphaena. Believed to be siblings, Cleopatra's parents were the descendants of Ptolemy I Soter, a general of Alexander the Great and one of the Diadochi successors who divided Alexander's empire. He was the eventual founder of the Ptolemaic line of Egyptian pharaohs. Cleopatra's heritage can thus be traced to Macedonia, and she probably considered herself to be Greek. Her name, Cleopatra, famously translates to honor of the father in ancient Greek. Did you also know that Cleopatra was very intelligent, well-educated, and very ambitious? Her intelligence was praised by numerous ancient historians, most notably Plutarch, and she was reputedly well-versed in mathematics, philosophy, and debate. She was also gifted with languages. Her native tongue was Koine Greek, but she became fluent in at least 9 languages during her rule, including Arabic and Hebrew. She was the only pharaoh of the Ptolemaic dynasty to learn the Egyptian language, which made her an effective leader because she could communicate with her armies without a translator. Cleopatra also introduced the leap year. During her affair with Julius Caesar, Cleopatra brought him to the ancient university of Alexandria. Here, she introduced him to an astronomer named Sosigenes of Alexandria, who proposed a calendar that followed solar cycles rather than the previous lunar calendar. This calendar featured an additional day every 4 years for consistency, now called the leap year. Caesar adopted the idea and implemented it in Rome in 45 BCE and 1 year later in Egypt. The names of Caesar and subsequent Roman emperors became names of the months, which we still use today, such as July after Julius and August after Augustus. And did you also know that Cleopatra was linked to the goddess Isis? The Egyptian pharaoh was closely associated with the gods and was considered the incarnation of Horus on earth. Egyptian queens were often associated with Isis as the wife and mother of gods, while previous female Egyptian pharaohs, such as Hatshepsut, maintained a kingly association with Horus, Cleopatra embraced an association with Isis. Cleopatra encouraged this association by dressing herself as Isis for ceremonial events and often looked to religious prophecy to justify her actions. Her ally Mark Antony would later follow her lead and associate himself with the Greek god Dionysius, while even her adversary Octavian was known to have dressed up as the god Apollo. And what did Cleopatra look like exactly? Well, Cleopatra XII, mainly known as Cleopatra, has been remembered for her striking beauty and seductive allure. There has been debate about what she actually looked like. There is significant evidence of her face on ancient coinage, but only 2 busts depicting her survive, and only one of them is complete. Her bust matches her profile as seen on coins, but there is some suggestion that her image was portrayed as hypermasculine to convey her strength as a ruler, as if to compare her to her male contemporaries. Now we're going to talk about escaping Actium when Cleopatra was intercepted fleeing to India. After Cleopatra and Mark Antony's infamous defeat at the Battle of Actium, Cleopatra fled the scene using a sea route known only by members of the Ptolemaic dynasty. This route had been discovered after some Egyptians rescued an Indian man from a damaged ship in the Red Sea. The Indian man agreed to share his secret route with King Ptolemy II in exchange for safe passage. However, the route was not well maintained and had become overrun with bandits, so they switched courses onto what is known today as the Suez Canal. Unfortunately, the Nabatean people who occupied the area had made alliances with Augustus and Octavian and intercepted the escape, forcing Cleopatra to return to Egypt and strengthen her defenses. Now we're going to talk more about Cleopatra's death. How did she die? While Cleopatra is widely believed to have died by suicide, the details vary between historians. Some accounts state that Cleopatra died by allowing an asp or Egyptian cobra to bite and affect her with its venom. However, others claim that she poisoned herself with a toxic substance on a hairpin or other sharp object. Additionally, there has been modern skepticism about whether or not Cleopatra was murdered or if Octavian let her die by suicide as her method of choice. And now Cleopatra's tomb has yet to be found. While ancient accounts indicate that Mark Antony and Cleopatra were likely buried together, the exact location of the burial site remains unknown. There has been significant speculation and investigation on the subject, beginning with Alexandria and extending into surrounding areas. Although several tombs have been uncovered with leads to important burial sites, her tomb has yet to be discovered. And lastly, did you know that Cleopatra was probably the richest woman in the world? Cleopatra made an attractive ally for her Roman friends because she was incredibly wealthy. Modern calculations suggest that she had a net worth of $95.8 billion in today's money, making her one of the richest women of all time. As well as controlling Egypt's grain supply, which would become the breadbasket of Rome, she had access to coffers of gold filled by international trade, not to mention Egypt's significant manpower. Cleopatra financed Julius Caesar's projects to maintain and expand his power in Rome. She also financed much of Mark Antony's war in Parthia, and then his struggle against Octavian. When Octavian defeated Cleopatra, he took Egypt as a personal possession, monopolizing its vast wealth. That is not to say that Cleopatra did not struggle, as droughts and volcanic eruptions caused famines during her reign. She responded by having the royal granaries distribute food to the population and revolutionizing the monetary system. She was the first pharaoh to have the value stamped on coins and made that stamp a guarantee of its value rather than the weight of the coin, which was greatly debased. Also, unlike her predecessors, she minted no gold coins during her reign. So that was all for Aphrodite, Athena, and Cleopatra. If you enjoyed it, please like the video. And if you want some more info, please let me know in the comments below. And I want to give a very happy name day to everybody who's being celebrated today. And I pray that you will receive the love, happiness, courage, wisdom, health, and wealth that you deserve.